Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mavs Moneyball After Dark. This is Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. You are joining us at 10:45 on Monday, February 13th, following the Dallas Mavericks late game stumble of a loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves, 124-121, though that description really doesn't do the game justice. It was a weird one. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I should have known that this was going to be the type of game that happens when I decided to volunteer to do the recap.
Yeah, you saved me because I don't know how I would have. I don't know what I would have written on this one.
I kind of feel bad that I denied the public what I think could have been a. If you were in note-taking form for the recap for this game, I think you would have. I think
it would have been like 6,000 words long.
Yes, it would have.
So, I mean, just as a quick rundown, if you decided to miss this one, it was Kyrie's home opener. Just an awful basketball game. By and large, just like Luka looked like he'd been to like he'd just been out. Frankly, he's a little puffy, a little off his game, a little pouty. The defense was terrible because the Mavericks don't really have good defenders. Anthony Edwards 8, and then the Timberwolves are much bigger than Dallas. I mean, they punished the Mavericks in points in the paint. And it looked like a terrible kind of, okay, let's just get this game over with, heading into the fourth quarter with Dallas down by 1 billion. And then Kyrie Irving, I mean, there's 6-7 players in the NBA that can do what he just did. How many points did he have in the fourth?
26.
26 of his 36 points in the fourth quarter, and it was magic. The Mavericks came all the way back down from I don't even know.
It was 26-point lead in the third quarter.
They came all the way back. They get within 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Jason Kidd of it all took over. He doesn't
we could do the whole podcast just on the end of the game.
Well, let's do the fun stuff first. I think we should. I like I don't like leading with bitching all the time. I think people get tired of me doing that. But, just as a preview, Jason Kidd forgot that he's a basketball coach in the fourth quarter, which is a common occurrence. And the Mavericks late game execution for the second straight game was pathetic. The play and they didn't even get a final shot off. Kidd let a timeout go to waste, even though the Mavericks had an inbound play with 14 seconds left. Play got broken up, and they got the ball, and then they just like collectively as a team fart. Like no one person is responsible. I don't really know. I mean, stuff like that happens. I was just very disappointed in the execution but it part of it comes to say that let's just talk about the fun stuff first. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's be real. The only fun stuff was Kyrie Irving's fourth quarter.
Yes.
It was pretty insane. He was 3 shy of the team record for most points in a quarter by a Mavericks player, which I don't know if I remember, but it was Dirk with 29 in a home game against Utah. And also that was also the fourth quarter for Dirk. I have that. I don't know why, but that game is like etched in my memory. I remember where I was when I watched that game. It was pretty crazy. It was just one of those
With
games.
how Dirk scores, 29 is like might as well be 70 in a quarter.
Yeah. It was one of those games where he just caught the ball and just drove, and he just drove every single time and scored. It was pretty crazy.
No.
But this was pretty nuts. I mean, it wasn't just that he scored 26 in the fourth. Like, I mean, it was pure like, I'm grabbing the rebound, I'm going up the floor, and I'm shooting. Like, I mean, he rarely passed it to anyone else for good reason. And it was just an incredible all-world offensive performance. I mean, he hit some threes in that fourth. Like, he had that one in transition. I can't remember. I mean, he had a couple threes in the fourth. But, man, he had one where he was full speed with the ball crossing the
just stopped on a dime.
Yeah. And just nothing but net on a three. And I was just like, holy crap. Like, it was crazy. It was absolutely
What made
crazy.
it more impressive to me was that his shot, like, we're seeing the edges of Kyrie superfans and Luka superfans circle themselves in a weird knife fight. But once again, that wasn't the thing that I took away from this game. But Kyrie's shot was like incredibly flat for most of the night. He had 2 or 3 wide open 3-point looks that were all short, which and his shot was just like low. And for him to start cooking was amazing.
Can I offer a theory as to?
Sure.
I mean, he actually got to touch the ball in the fourth quarter. I don't want to skip to the bad part real fast because we were trying to talk about the good stuff. But I mean, if you were intently watching that game, the first 3 quarters, he was a spot up shooter with occasionally running a pick and roll
over in the corner. The corner, not
in the
like
corner. In the corner,
not involved in any actions.
No,
not involved in anything.
No, just watching Luka do the Luka ball and running a pick and roll and then catching the ball in the corner on a spot up, which, I mean, he should still be able to make spot up threes. He's a good spot up 3-point shooter. But, I mean, he was just, they weren't using him. I mean, they weren't running plays with him.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then, seriously, like the fourth quarter started, he starts the game without Luka on the floor, and he just, like, he's doing stuff. Like, I mean, remember when we had this conversation a bunch when Kristaps Porzingis was here, and remember when we would kind of like watch these games where he would just like miss all these spot up looks, and we're like, what is going on with him? And then he would have like a really good game, and it would usually happen because he's just touching the ball, not necessarily like driving, just like dribble handoffs, stuff like that, like just being engaged, moving around the floor, and those would usually be his best games. And like, Kyrie is a superstar, and while he doesn't need to have like a 30 usage rate to be effective, and he has some off-ball skills, you can't expect him to just sit in the corner for however many minutes, 36 minutes, and be productive.
And what I don't understand, and look, these guys still probably haven't had a practice. They probably won't have a practice. At this point in the year, they might come back from All-Star break a day early and maybe do some walkthroughs, but there is no practice. This is all theory, and you assume that basketball savants can get together and figure this stuff out. I think they will, but I don't, Luka calling the same pick and roll over and over. Brian Damaris made a point when this trade went down of emphasizing how Luka should never get doubled again. Once again, I saw a lot of Luka doubling.
Well, it's easier to double when Kyrie's sitting in the corner.
That's exactly my point.
Because he's not the trigger man. He's not the guy that's catching the ball. They're cool
with
doubling Luka if Dwight's catching the ball or Reggie Bullock's catching the ball. Like, they don't care.
I don't know who's at fault, because when I mentioned earlier kind of the budding, like, just online beef between people who love Kyrie, and as I've learned, there are people that love Kyrie. He's the Kobe of this generation of people that just love him regardless. And there's a lot of worldwide fandom for Luka, same sort of thing. And it's, to me, I think smart players figure it out. Like Kristaps Porzingis was not on Kyrie's level. No, not even close. Not with how the game is played today. So Luka didn't really. Right. Luka couldn't. Porzingis couldn't demand what Kyrie, I think, can get to. And Luka's talked about it. That's what's been interesting. He's been like very effusive on how fun he thinks it is to play with Kyrie Irving. So at that point, it requires our Hall of Fame point guard, head coach, to perhaps dictate something that gets these two involved in an action together. It's a wild concept, and hear me out. I think Jason Kidd should do some coaching.
Yeah, for sure. But we're, and then my counter will be, we've had two coaching staffs, and Luka has played one way for two coaching staffs.
Right.
And by the way, that last coaching staff was one that liked to call a lot of plays and a lot of sets. So
that's true.
You're right. No, I'm not trying to stick up for Kidd because, good Lord, like I said, we can have an entire podcast about the final, minute of this game. But I think there's a delicate balance going on right now because a lot of the reason Carlisle left was, I think they had reached the limit of him being able to coach or push Luka. Luka did not. From the reporting we got, Luka did not like Rick. He didn't like how Rick treated other players, and he didn't. There was just a friction there because Rick is a control freak, and Luka's maybe, I don't know if he's a control freak, but when you're as good as him, there's going to be some friction there, and so a lot of the Kidd hiring was kind of to be like that, to be like a seance and just be like a cool vibes and let's chill, let's have a good relationship and let's get through this. And now we're going to get to the point where okay, that part of it is cool. Cool, you've got that part down. But there has to be a balance between singing Kumbaya and being Luka's bud and just letting him do whatever he wants and trying to push him a little bit into a direction that can be more productive down the road.
I think that's been where I've sat for a couple of weeks now. And I think it's the best way forward. And I think you have to push him. I think he wants to be coached.
Yeah, and then but again, the ball's in Luka's court at the end of the day.
That's true. And he had a rough, I'm not sure if we've really addressed it properly. He had a rough game. The box stats,
through 3 quarters, he was the reason that game was as bad as it was.
His defense, his decision making and griping, and it was real. It was real rough. And kudos to him for when he came back in the fourth quarter. For continuing to feed Kyrie that.
I put that in the recap that was a good sign, and maybe that's the springboard, to get this thing in the right direction.
And see, that's why I just think it's more coaching and direction than it is anything else, because Luka's not going to do anything different from his MVP caliber play unless someone is like, hey, let's try some stuff. Let's get weird. Let's run some plays. I mean, the ball, there's been a stat that's been floating around, small sample size theater, but it's the sheer number of passes the Mavericks were making when Luka was out compared to when Luka came back in. It dropped by 30%. And that's a thing that's hard to ignore. And so while I will remain a Luka Doncic super fan, I think that they have to figure this out. And I think that it's the coaching staff that needs to sort of mediate and not just let two superstars figure it out. Because let's get to the other thing beyond the offense. Because the offense, we overemphasize it because it's more fun and frankly, it's a little easier to talk about. But the problem is they can't get stops.
No, the defense is horrible. The Kings had 74 points in the paint on Saturday. Timberwolves had 64. You're not going to win. I don't think any NBA team is going to win a 2-game stretch when you're giving up 138 points in the paint across 2 games. It's mind blowing how bad it is right now. And I mean, again, the Wolves shot 9 of 29 from 3. This isn't one of those games where you're they got hot. What are you going to do?
They're a maddening team to watch.
The Wolves shot 23 of 26 at the rim. They were 9 of 17 at the game. That's not getting hot. It's
impossible.
Right. You can't, it's not sustainable. And the thing that's really frustrating is it's not like the Wolves were doing cool shit. It was just like, dude, straight line drives. You know, like it's just.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
You just have to keep your man in front of you, and they're not. Like, I saw so many, like, in Luka, it was Green had a couple that were like over eager closeouts, and then the Wolves are just dribbling right in the paint with, no contest. And the Mavericks rim protection isn't good, but a way that you could maybe help out your bad bigs that can't really guard the rim well is maybe you don't have them have to guard a billion 2-on-1 situations at the rim, like Dwight Powell and Christian Wood and JaVale McGee aren't it in terms of rim defense. And dude, how many times do we see all three of those guys just get shoved out of the way, and then the Wolves player just kind of score a layup? Like, I'm not trying to excuse them, but like, we know that they're bad. Like, we know that they're not, good rim protectors. The only way you can make it better is if you just be like, hey, I'm just going to stay in front of my guy. But apparently that's too much to ask.
Or commit to like a switch heavy. I mean, that's where we're getting into the weeds elements of it. Like, the big rotation right now misses Maxi Kleber so stinking bad they don't know what to do, because it's like Dwight Powell tries real hard, but he's a negative 15 in 14 minutes. The JaVale McGee experiment ended hysterically quickly. He was a -5 in 2 minutes of play.
That was a fun couple game run, but that's over.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's over.
Yeah,
Throwing him out there ahead of Wood, who Wood kills me, but Wood can at least put the ball in the basket. I mean, where Wood needs to be more decisive on defense. He block hunts, and so he gets his ass kicked sometimes by people who make basic moves.
Well, and also he weighs like 100.
Yes, Naz Reid put him into the stanchion a few times.
Yeah,
like, that's just bully, and that's what Luka does to people. So I'm like, yeah, okay, what are you gonna do? This was Josh Green is absolutely allowed to have a bad game.
Yeah,
right.
Yes.
Like, that's everybody's so excited for him, as we should be. Rudy Gobert is one of the few players I think lives in his dome, because Rudy took him out of the Utah series last year. Now, game 3, he had an incredible game. He hit like 2 or 3 shots. I mean, more than this, but he had a good, like, he was a big reason, Josh Green was, why the Mavericks won, I want to say, game 3. But basically Rudy disrespected Green, just left him alone. And there were plays tonight where it was just like they didn't care that Green existed. And that, like, watching that become this is the first game we've had in several, at least few weeks, where the disrespect that Josh Green gets most nights, because he does. Teams don't guard him. They don't they don't know how to guard him, because he gets like one dribble moves to the basket. Now, he's making all of this. This is not a slight at Green, but it was odd to see him not make a team pay after he's done this for a few weeks. So just thinking about that, where it's like he's still got some growth to do. He got up 11 shots in 38 minutes, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He more or less played, he tried on defense, and in 38 minutes, like he just has to be allowed to have a bad offensive game now and then. Like, they can't rely on him to have 15, 20 points. Like he has been.
Right. And honestly, they would have gotten, I mean, like we said, the Mavs finished shooting 50% from the floor. They made more 3-pointers than the Wolves. So they can win games when Green has a bad game like this, because that's why you get Kyrie and Luka, because as much bitching as I'm going to do about the process, they both combined to score 69 points. Their talent is going to outweigh bad process a lot of nights. The only time it's going to really worry me is like in the playoffs when they're scouting and they're playing better teams consistently. But the problem is okay, Green finally had an off game, but then it's like Wood was the only other person that scored double figures. And it's just like,
and Wood's minutes distributions are just, I don't understand kids' rotations, because that allows me like an easy transition into the back half of what I want to talk about here, where I understand that the Mavs don't have bodies, where Tim Hardaway going down actually forces Theo Pinson to play more.
Yep.
And folks are going to look at the plus minus and tell me I'm wrong here. Theo Pinson played while Kyrie got hot. That was the extent of why Theo Pinson has a team leading plus 12. Okay. Because he was in the game. But that Theo has to be in the game is extremely challenging for this team rotation minutes, because they went small in the fourth and challenge, and basically tried to.
The only thing that worked.
Yeah, but did it work because Kyrie got hot, or did it work because Theo was in the game?
I think it only defensively it kind of worked just because the Wolves were like, oh, we got to match up. Like they abandoned Rudy way too quickly, I think, and because Rudy was 21 points, 9 of 9 from the field. Like I don't know what, like, Rudy is a weird player. I don't know what this thing is about him, like just not getting enough time. Like there were possessions at the start of that fourth quarter where like he had his guy like. All you have to do is make the easiest.
They don't pass him because he has hands like early stage Eric Dampier.
Yeah, he had 3 turnovers. Yeah, but that's like I think if he would have stayed in the game, this even with Kyrie's explosion, this might have been like a 7 or 8 point Wolves win instead of like one going down on the buzzer. But
I could see that.
But at least that was something. Like we criticized Kidd for sitting around with his hands in his pockets, but at least like he was like, all right. None of my bigs are doing anything. Yeah. Let me try to get Gobert off the floor by just going small. And it worked. It was the only quarter the Wolves didn't score 30 points.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'm being unfair. I can't handle. It's not any of these guys' fault, but it just shows sort of like, you trade for Kyrie and you do a 2-for-1 swap. So the Dallas depth has just been eviscerated. And these guys have to play.
Yeah. This is why this is a game where like people like bitching about them signing Justin Holiday. I'm like, look, I get it. He's not exciting. And but like they could have signed whoever they signed, like is going to get minutes right now. Like
just a few minutes. Yeah. We're talking like 10 minutes a game. Cause like you look at the back, like the bench minutes, 23 for Wood, 2 for McGee, 13 for Frank, who had he hit 1 3. Theo Pinson hit a pair of threes in 19 minutes. Which were both good looking shots. And Jaden Hardy hit a field goal, but did nothing in his 16 minutes. I mean, like a remarkable amount of nothing from Jaden Hardy in 6. That's hard. God, wow. And so it's like kids sort of, he's trying to steal time. And I understand this. Now, where I will be critical of the stealing time issue is like there's certain pairings you cannot have on the floor together.
Right.
Please stop pairing Theo and Hardy together. Please stop.
Right.
It's not fair to either of them.
They might need to, I don't know if they're going to do it, but maybe they need to look at it because basically they're still running the same rotation with the starters where Luka's playing all of the first, all of the third. And maybe they need to just stagger. They did that because they kind of had to, right? Like they just, because Dinwiddie wasn't doing it and they were losing all the minutes. Luka wasn't on the floor. So I feel like they were like, here's how we feel like we can maximize his minutes. Well, now you got Kyrie. So does Luka have to play the whole first quarter? Does he have to play the entire third quarter? Like maybe you can and credit, Luka actually only played 36 minutes in this game, which is kind of remarkable. He actually was only the fourth most in minutes played. So maybe you can get Luka's minutes down a little bit, or even if it's not down, just redistribute them. Like he doesn't maybe pull him earlier in the first quarter so you can put Pinson in and you're not putting in Pinson and Hardy to start the second quarter, like whatever.
Like, I mean, they're in a tough bind.
Try to mix it. Yeah, no. There's not an easy answer.
I'm being very critical because I'm frustrated, but I do understand that they're in a bind. Now, part of why I get so heated and continue to do this is what happens when you don't honor the spots on the roster. Like you sign a vibes guy and then the vibes guy has to play.
Right. And did you see the Mark Stein tidbit?
Oh yeah, I was going to let you bring that up because I think when I do it, I come off as just ludicrous.
Well, I mean, we're talking about like respecting building the end of your roster, and Mark Stein in his latest like newsletter or whatever he posted today basically said that the Mavericks thought they had Ross verbal commitment, and then when they finished their game on Sunday, I guess, or Saturday, he changed his mind and go to the Suns, and he said, the contract details aren't out there yet, but the Suns didn't use all of their mid-level exception this summer, so they can offer more than the veterans minimum, which is all the Mavericks.
Shout out to Robert Sarver being a cheap ass.
So once again, if you think about JaVale McGee, and a dude that has basically been playing on nothing but veteran minimums since his last big contract that he got with Denver, I think since that contract ran out, he's been on nothing but veteran minimums. If the Mavericks would have just done that again, they might have Terrence Ross right now. I mean, who knows? Maybe
that one,
that's tough, but maybe, I don't know.
That one's hard for me because when it comes to like mid-level stuff, first of all, I don't know if that's entirely accurate because McGee didn't get all of it because they gave some of it to Hardy for the 4-year.
Right, but they still could have just given McGee a veteran.
Right? Did you have to? Now the flip side is like I don't recall lots of instances where teams don't pay a player an entire exception if it's available. Maybe I'm wrong. So
I don't know how often teams go into a season with
the little spots.
Attack.
And that's where I'm just like from a huge like 50,000 foot perspective, it annoys me. But in this specific case, I'm kind of like, okay, I get it. Like this is where Sarver, who wouldn't pay for anything before he sold the Suns, like it just works out in the Suns' favor. Now,
is this a thing where if they would if that happened at the time, like in October, we're like, why aren't these cheap bastards using their mid-level? Why are they,
but this is what it comes back. Like I've been thinking about this, and this is before Kid and Nico, so I can't really hold their feet to the fire on this. But several years ago, the Mavs picked up Willie and who was our other tiny guard from Trey Burke off of the buyout, and then they're both bought out by their teams. They're just floating out there. And then they re-signed both of them to contracts that no one else was offering using their exception that offseason. Yeah. And for the life of me, I will never understand that sort of – it's like you go back and you earnestly look at like where the Mavericks have given true free agent money. The best signing of like the last several years is Bullock, Seth Curry, and then that might be it.
Then you have to go back to Jose Calderon and Monte Ellis.
Yeah, it's just tough. And granted, free agency is a lot tougher than we make it out to be. So sometimes we're not being fair, but you just have to. I feel like when it comes to team building, for a very long time, everyone it's like, well, we're going to give up this roster spot, and you and I've been wrong on some stuff. Like we very much went after them. We were thrilled that they got rid of Barea, and then I think with hindsight, Barea made a big difference in kind of the connectivity between the coaching staff and the players. Mm-hmm. And so I just find myself frustrated because this Mavericks team is capable of winning a whole lot of basketball games on the pure talent. But I don't know, like Kyrie's playing a lot of minutes and he's a small guy with an injury history. And I don't know how reasonable it is to assume that he can just continue to go like this.
Yeah, that's such a bigger conversation.
But that's where it's like the depth just plays in. That's all. That's what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they got one more game to the All-Star break. Maybe they can recoup there, but man, if your defense is in a bad way, they play Denver in Denver.
Well, and if they lose this, they fall to 8th, which is going to be that's going to be a bitch for the discourse.
Yeah, and I mean the discourse. I mean, they would have
tied. They would have been the 3 seed, I think, had they beaten the Kings.
Yeah, and so they're 1-0 with Kyrie without Luka, and they're 0-2 with Kyrie and Luka. So I'm sure that's going to help the discourse.
They're 2-0 with just Kyrie.
Oh, that's right.
So,
oh God,
I know, I hate it. I will say, like the last thing that I wanted to touch on was in the pregame, like the first real media availability is press conference. Like Kyrie got asked about his future and basically politely said, I don't want to talk about this right now. And the journalist and content maker in me, and I'm not really a journalist, but the person that focuses on content is like, that's a bullshit answer. Bah, 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 bah. the fan and the person who watches this team every night, and the fact that he's only played 4 games with the team, I think that's a perfectly reasonable request right now. I really do. I don't want to hear about this stuff. I don't want to talk about it all the time. It's great for clicks. It's just so good to talk about this stuff for our own gain. But I don't want to talk about it. And I'm with Kyrie on this one.
Yeah, I mean, and also it's one of those things where I think they can't they only offer him
The
right
2-year
now?
deal right
The
now.
2
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they, even if both sides were like, let's do it 4 years max contract, they can't even legally sign that contract till the summer. So there's nothing to talk about, so if they can't even legally give him the money that he wants right now, it honestly makes sense. Why are we even talking about it?
Yeah.
I actually commend, this is going to be one more off the court headache that maybe we can potentially scratch off the list, so I'm with you. I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
What else is there to talk about? They can't offer him the max. He's not going to take a 2-year contract extension. So there you
Let's
go.
revisit in the offseason. It's fine.
Yeah.
Go win some games. And if they really want him, then they'll make the case.
Right.
And then he'll either sign it or he won't. And if he doesn't, then we'll have
we'll go from
a
there.
whole different discussion. And I don't want to have that one right now. Anyway, I was just sort of thinking about that today because it became kind of like the topic du jour online, and with how Kyrie has spoken with press over at various points over the last several years, it frustrates me because sometimes he has been very, very talk downish, but I also think the press can lose their minds now and then, particularly with the content creation stuff. So it's for this, I'm just gonna say, okay, let's not do it. Let's just watch. There's so much great basketball stuff to talk about with these guys, as we just did for 40 minutes. So
Right.
We'll stick to that for a while.
I'm with you.
Okay, I'm gonna go host a live show. We're gonna see how mad people are. It's been the comments. I love the commenters that participate in this, but that first game, people were pretty grumpy. I'm not looking forward to this one for the same reason.
Yeah, because this basically doubled down, and if Kyrie doesn't turn into basketball Jesus for 12 minutes, could you imagine going to this live show if they lost?
I almost would have
25
rather
points?
So as much as I really like that, I almost would have because you can chalk it up and just be like, you know what, they got their asses kicked. That happens some nights.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's just
true.
I don't know. You wrote this that the Mavericks are the team to talk about. There's always something every day, every game. Yeah. All right, Kirk Henderson, Josh Bowe. We'll be back to cover the Denver game. And then we got a nice column up tomorrow. Meta Robinson wrote kind of on this exact subject, whether Luka can play differently. I liked her post. And then we'll be running the Justin Holiday news just because I didn't really want to push it. Because I'm just I can't get emotionally invested in a buyout guy.
No. Me either. I can't do these Stanley Johnson.
I
Justin
tweeted.
Holiday
I
debates.
tweeted. I was like, everybody that has a strong opinion on these guys is lying.
Yes, they are. Even me.
All right, guys. Everybody be good. Have a good Tuesday, Wednesday, and we will talk to you guys on Wednesday night.